Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's that time again when the Bill Crane Report is on the air. Now, if you're wondering and you're saying, now wait a minute, something's wrong.
Did I get the wrong channel?
Yeah. No. We have a guest this morning, Jay Kenny. And Jay is coming to us with a special report in mind, and is going to stay with us and share with us his point of view on various subjects that we're going to get to. But you know, before I get rolling, I do have something I need to talk to you folks about. And it would be nice if I could find it. Okay. On a sad note, we have a couple of things to report. Father Ravad, Robert Ravad, longtime resident priest here in Norfolk at St. Jude's Catholic Church, passed away at the age of 89. A kindly and gentle soul, unless you're talking politics, and he will be missed. He was a good guy. And secondly, I have something else to report. I was talking to Rosemary Lyons, who I'm sure most of you know, and Ed, her husband, is fighting a battle health-wise, and he's in serious shape. So Rosie,
he's been going through a chemo.
Yeah,
Quite serious,
yeah,
man.
and I guess it's getting worse.
Yeah.
So I asked Rosie if it would be appropriate if I mentioned the fact that Eddie was hurting and in need of some thoughts and prayers, and she said, please. So folks, in your prayers, I ask you to keep in mind Eddie and Rosie as they struggle with this bit of nasty disease. And also, remember Father Ravad too. And on that note, I would like to now mention a couple of things, and then I'm going to get Jay involved.
Uh-oh.
He's warming up in the bullpen as we speak.
Pressure's on.
So every morning before the show, I get up early and I put the last minute touches on the show while I'm watching the news, and invariably I find things I want to add. So here's one this morning. Donald Trump yesterday, in a wide-ranging interview with Sean Hannity on Fox, suggested the solution to the drug problem was the death penalty for drug dealers. I tend to agree with him. Well, we've tried everything else. It's supposedly now, the average dealer kills 500 people in his career selling drugs. How do you define that? How do you grab that number? I don't know. But I know it's a serious problem and it's wrecking this country. It's destroying the fabric of this country. Dwayne, weigh in on this.
Well, it's been tried. Philippines tried it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a disaster.
Really?
It turned out to be a license to kill because they were using it as an excuse. This local constable didn't like this guy, so he says, well, he's a drug dealer. Kaboom! This guy, they killed that guy. So you got to be careful with it.
Well, it's not for the police to go out and shoot people.
I know.
It is an execution, a legal execution.
You mean as a penalty?
Yes.
Well, I don't have any trouble with the death penalty at all.
No, I don't either.
We don't. In fact, you and I had advocated
That's
public
exactly
executions on the
right.
town square.
And by the way, too, just one other thing, too, is that I, for the life of me, cannot understand why we go through these maddening exercises when it's time to execute someone. Well, this chemical makes them burp, and
Yeah,
this
that-
one makes them this,
That
and
is
this.
so damn stupid.
It is. The firing squad, one shot to the heart and you're dead immediately.
They're so worried about the chemicals
Yeah,
on the chemical execution.
yeah.
Millions of people get surgery every day.
Yeah.
They don't have any trouble putting them to sleep.
Exactly.
Give them whatever they're giving in a surgical room and goes to sleep, and then.
And
off
by
'em.
the way, if there's some discomfort to this guy for 10 or 15 seconds before he is gone.
Got three
let me-
words for that. Too
Yeah.
damn bad.
Yeah, too damn bad is right. Let's think about his victims.
Well.
Yeah, and how they suffered. Weigh in on this, Jay.
Well, the right to life people are the ones that are going to be the ones that are up in arms about this, most of all. I understand the issues behind it. I see where they're coming from. The issue I have with it is the length of time it takes to go from incarceration to the actual process to their demise, and how long and how much money the court system is involved.
Yeah.
And it just
It goes years and years and years.
it goes decades in many cases. And what is the purpose of that? They get free meals, they get free lodging, and I mean, really, what does it come down to? And it's a common sense matter, I think, when it comes to that. You know?
Let's amplify on that just a tad. You are guaranteed by the Constitution a speedy trial of your peers.
Correct.
How long does it take prosecutors and the defense to prepare for a trial? 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
And now, the guy or gal, is she out on parole during this time? Or, not parole, but she out on bail, I would guess. Or are they doing time? Because the bail is set at $2 million or something because it's a horrific crime. That's not fair either, to be incarcerated for 2 years while you wait for your trial.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. There's holes in this whole thing. What a mess.
The whole court system is a mess.
Yeah,
It needs
really
to be
is.
revamped and readjusted, and we've seen firsthand what's happened over the last few months.
And you know what? The biggest, and Dwayne will be all over this, the biggest, absolute, maddening part of our judicial system is the fact that the judges buy their appointment by donating
Yes.
all kinds of money
Yep.
to would-be candidates or governors or senators or blah, 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 influential people. So that when they raise their hand and say, I want to be a judge, they get all kinds of people on their side and bango, they're a judge. So that's the qualification.
Well,
is
that takes us back to one of the first shows we ever did.
Yeah.
240 something.
Yeah.
We got, our first disagreement was, should judges be appointed or elected?
Right.
I took elected, he had appointed.
Right.
That's why he was making references. I
Sure.
was
The
gonna jump
appointed
off.
one has that advantage over the
Yeah.
elected one. That's for sure.
Because he's safe.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what he does.
Right. If he pays the right person or if he donates to the right cause,
exactly.
then he's got that influential variance there. yeah.
Or if he's served a couple of terms in the House of Representatives.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Made a few friends along the way.
Yeah.
background has to do with some of that. Sure.
Well, Jay is here because we have got something really cooking here in the town of Norfolk. Headlines. And Jay is going to report on Raucous Night in Norfolk. You went to the meeting on Tuesday night.
I did. I made some notes.
Let me see that.
It's
They publish
it's
different papers?
been an interesting last month and a half, I guess, with everything that's going on. Once we were told, and thanks to Representative Vaughn, Marcus Vaughn, for informing the town by Facebook, is how I saw it, of the intent for the state to relocate homeless, indigent migrants, the whole kit and caboodle here, to give them some shelter.
Yeah, let's make sure we give credit to Marcus.
Exactly.
That was an excellent letter he wrote, and he did it immediately.
Yes, he did.
And he said, look what they're doing, folks.
Yep.
And also the town of Walpole put together a very strong letter, too,
Yeah.
about this. Please, I'm sorry.
Well, my first question was, why Bay State? It has been empty for 9 years, almost 10 years now. And the inactivity, the lack of usage of the entire facility and everything could cause other issues that they hadn't planned on, whether it's run down or whatever. I know they've been using it as the facilities building for the transportation part of MCI Norfolk. So that was my first question, and I wanted to see if we could get some answers about that. They have gone in and done some inspecting, and there are a lot of concerns that were brought up at the forum regarding environmental, with mercury and lead and all of these other hazardous issues, excuse me. And so, of course, that's going to be priority one, to make sure the people that are going to be residing there, that make sure they're safe and that they're not going to be harmed. I mean, if we're going to relocate people and give them shelter, we don't want to harm them. We want to make sure they're okay. That's the purpose. I have an issue with them bringing them in at such a short notice without this kind of preparation or anything like that. I do believe that we've got a lot of issues with our illegal immigration, and that's a big issue that can be going on for months and years to discuss. But there, according to the forum, Tuesday night, we were informed that 50% of the people that are going into the shelter are actually homeless citizens of the United States. And the other half are illegal asylum seekers. So that's something that wasn't brought up initially, which the right to shelter in the state of Massachusetts is something that is a law, and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be accommodated in that need, because we do have a lot of homeless people, and we need to make sure that they're taken care of. Is it voluntarily that they're homeless, or were they evicted? What is the situation there? That is another issue that I brought up, or I have with this whole thing, is if there are issues with the people where they are causing problems. They are causing the police to have to respond to the building, to medical issues, to domestic violence, whatever it might be. What happens to them? They told us that it was a 3-strike program. So after 3 strikes, then they're evicted. What happens when they get evicted? Where do they go?
Just do another program.
Are they sent out of the country?
No.
We're going to keep the troublemakers. So they've been given 3 tries, and now those 3 tries are not enough. We're going to keep giving them another shot.
I'd put them on a plane and send them to Chicago. Then let people in Chicago deal with it.
Chicago, Cuba, Haiti, I don't know. What is the solution there?
Yeah,
Well, the solution. First of all, the problem. We had a system in Massachusetts, mental health hospitals,
Yes.
and we closed them all.
Yes.
Thank you, Governor Dukakis. And it was because of the liberal mindset that if you keep them in a hospital, they can never get better. You've got to get them out in the community. They've got to interface with the community.
Interact, right.
They interact with the community, and they will be better off. Well, we've tried it. Guess what? Dukakis didn't exactly know what he was doing
He didn't agree
when
with
he
it?
opened Pandora's box.
I wasn't around during this time, so
Yeah.
I'm not aware of what happened. So
So, well, you see it now. It's homelessness.
Yeah.
We cannot deal with mental health problems.
right,
The police are called upon to be many things. They have to be as wise as Solomon, as strong as Superman, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and yet they also have to be able to deal with complex mental health problems
sure,
that are caused by God only knows what. But they come to the fore when these people break the law, and rather than be hardened criminals, we find they're mentally disturbed.
Right.
And then it's, what the hell do we do with them?
right.
We don't have a real good game plan on that. And putting them back out in the community is not the right idea.
Right.
Mainstreaming like that has never worked,
No.
whether it be that or education or anything.
I got upfront looks at the mental hospitals in this state, Rentham State School and Medfield State Hospital. And I can tell you, the people in there were happy, they were well fed, they were clean, they had comfortable beds, and they were taken care of by staff that, generally speaking, loved them. And because you can't do that kind of work unless you're a compassionate person, because otherwise you'd go out of your mind.
Yeah.
And we were a lot better off
Yep.
with those series of hospitals. But
So here's the other issues that we're dealing with:
yeah, look
Okay,
at the money we were spending.
the capacity.
Yeah,
So
the capacity.
Bay State capacity is around 250 people, 250 to 275.
The-
At maximum, it was at 272.
And they're going to try to
They're
wait
going to have
500,
450.
450. Yeah.
450 now?
450 people are going to be in this facility. So that's going to be taxing on the septic system,
Oh my God.
the water
Overwhelming.
system, everything. Do they have alternative solutions for something of that nature when they start having issues with backups? And I don't know. They don't have answers, and that was a big dilemma,
That's
and
a
it
big
caused a big ruckus
Oh.
on Tuesday night.
Okay.
There were some heated people. They were very upset because there were no answers. They were. We'll get back to you. We'll respond back. We'll have answers. We'll find out. I mean, there was never a definitive answer to basically anything.
Well, those kind of answers are usually don't bother me.
Yeah.
And what date? What's the date? that
They're
gonna
not
start?
going to get back to you.
They're going to get back to us
Yeah.
after they get the 450 people in.
Well, here's the
That's-
school issue is the huge one.
Yeah.
And they're going to have that meeting after they already relocate the people in.
Well, there you go.
So, I mean, there's a whole lot of problems here involved, and with a town of 11,500 people, to bring in a 4% increase, it's going to
That's
have,
huge.
you know, the big issue that everybody has been addressing is fire and police, which
Yeah.
of course is going to be taxing on those guys. The people that work there are going to have to prioritize their responses. They're not talking about having 24/7 healthcare in there. They're talking about having people of the medical field to assist with matters within the complex.
Here's the problem. Okay, there's not going to be in-house medical help there. So what happens? Call for the ambulance.
Right.
And take them to the hospital. The ambulance, we're going to run the tires off the ambulance with these 450
And we only have
people.
one ambulance.
Yeah.
No, we have two.
We just purchased a second one, I believe.
Oh, we've had two all along.
We have.
In fact, I don't know whether the old diesel is still around, but we had three of them at one point.
Okay.
Um,
So that's the big issue is, of course, now I'm living in senior housing. I'm looking at emergency equipment is there 2, 3, 5 times a week for the elderly.
yeah. Imagine where it's going to be.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, we can't get to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine where it's going to be when you got 450, especially sick kids.
Right.
So what's the first
Who's
thing
gonna
you're going to do?
suffer? Who's gonna
First thing
suffer?
you're going to do? Call for the ambulance.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, they're talking about other stuff that was canceled. There were people up there asking questions about Mass Health has canceled their disability insurance and stuff like that. There's been a whole lot of issues that have been addressed here that Norfolk residents are very unhappy with, and it's rightfully so.
What was the mood of the people?
I want to say it was 70% to 80% were very upset.
Outraged?
To that point where people were standing up yelling. They weren't waiting for the microphone. They were
Okay.
actually getting up and yelling at the select board to the point where Jim Lehan, the chairman, had to stand up and address the people and tell them, if you're going to keep this up, we're going to start evicting or ejecting you from this forum. So it did get that heated, where people were, if you hadn't seen it on the news, the local Boston news channels did show up, and it did get quite heated. And there were no answers. It got to the point where Jim had to sit down. Jim Lehan had to actually sit down. Anita Mecklenburg stood up and took over. And she couldn't get a response because they were yelling at her even worse than they were yelling at Jim Lehan. And so it ended up being Justin, the town administrator, stepping in, and he ran the rest of the show for the forum. And the questions went on for 2 hours solid, and the line kept growing and growing. People were having to re-question or ask even more questions that came up after they got no answer this way. And it just kept building up, and it got to the point where we need to end this right away, or it's going to get real violent. And the police were there, and they were there for traffic control mostly, but you could tell that they were also there to let people know that if they're going to get out of control, it's not going to work for them, But that's where we ended it, was no questions answered, very limited, I should say. It's a problem. They said they tried 350 different locations, and they just closed Roxbury last month. They closed one in Boston that was a state-owned facility. Why? Because they wanted to move them out to the suburbs. They wanted to get them out here because they're so overpopulated. And Logan Airport is a mess right now.
That was a ill-conceived thing in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
That's in the airport.
But they had to put them someplace.
Yeah.
So I mean, Rentham Developmental Center was brought up a few times by people that were sitting around me. Wanted to know, why aren't they using that facility? There are numerous vacant houses
Yeah. there
at
are.
Rentham Developmental Center.
That is a very old bunch of buildings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Very run down.
Yep. And I don't think you'd want your family.
It's
put
probably
into
not
those
feasible
things.
to open them. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
My question
it would
was-
cost a hell of a lot of money
Well,
to renovate those things.
I'm sure.
And to what end?
If
you
they're
know?
putting them in a prison, why aren't they opening up MCI Walpole? They just closed that,
That's
less than
right.
a year ago.
Yeah.
If they're going to do that, why don't they just throw them in there? Because that facility is operating. There is a lot less maintenance and work to do.
That's right. That was
on
an operating facility
particular
until
facility.
weeks ago.
And it houses a whole lot more people.
The problem is
I
the people are going to feel icky about being in a prison.
Well,
all
see,
the
pro-
bars
also,
and
I don't
everything.
trust the fact that they're saying,
6 to 12 months.
yeah, 6 to
Right.
12 months. First of all, that's fairy tale.
Yep.
That's
Right.
appeasement.
Yeah.
But I also don't believe that. What was the percentage of our homeless opposed to immigrant homeless?
They're telling us that it's a 50-50.
It's not. I don't think so. I think it's probably 90-10.
Do you believe
Because
everything
we
they're
always
telling
had
you? Of
we've
course not.
always had that group of homeless here,
Right.
and the catastrophe didn't manifest itself until the illegal, we call them illegals, came in.
Right.
That's what they're trying to push you
Do
on.
you know that of course you don't know, but I go to Tufts Dental for my dental work. I was in there, and I walked from South Station over to Tufts when I have an appointment. I was astounded to see the amount of homeless guys asleep. Now,
Yeah.
you expect to see one or two
Oh,
as you go
there's a
through
lot.
Chinatown. And everything.
Right.
I mean, there was probably a dozen
Yeah.
wrapped up in those giveaway government blankets.
Right.
And heads covered and everything. You don't know if they're dead or what, but there's an inert form on the ground.
Well, you'd think a lot of them would go south, but of course, when it's hot this time of year, they're going to come north.
Yeah. Well, I did quite a bit of work with the homeless in Boston, and it was interesting, very interesting that you should say that, because one guy told me that he hitchhikes across the country and goes to Southern California
Yep.
for the winter,
Right.
and then comes back here for the summer.
Sure. They're snow bunnies, just like the people that have houses up here and have houses in Florida. The homeless are snow bunnies as well. They will transport themselves from point A to point B to accommodate the weather, you know?
Jake, was this just a yelling and screaming exercise, or did some people make some good points?
Well, yeah, there was numerous great questions. The problem was there was no
answer.
great answers. I mean, that was the big issue that got people to the point where they had to start screaming and yelling, because it was, like I said, I'll get back to you. We don't have an answer for that one.
But this is kind of a typical state, though.
Right.
They want to throw it at you fast and hard,
Yeah.
so you don't have a chance to
No
react
time to
for anything.
formulate.
Yeah,
To come up with a plan of
overwhelm them. Boom, today.
Right.
Yeah, they did that right now with that MBTA affordable housing thing. They're doing the same thing.
Right.
Out of the blue, boom, you're a MBTA station town.
Well, they
you
wanted
got
to
do
know
this.
if that was going to be included, that population.
Yep.
Those 450 people, is that going to be counted in our MBTA
To the low
40B
housing quota.
housing?
Yeah.
Is that going to be part of it? And they said, we don't have a plan for that yet.
Yeah, see, I mean, overwhelm the
system.
system. Yeah.
But it's one thing that you really have got to be proud of is the way our legislature has rolled up their sleeves and said, wow, what a problem. Let's work on this.
Oh, yeah.
Let's really address these issues and come up with some help for the governor.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, our local
You didn't believe that.
the select board? No.
No, okay.
Our local select board, the first meeting I went to as well, which was a quick hour before the actual town warrant of the election of the new $48 million they just added to our town debt. The response back from both, because Kevin's brand new, Kevin Roach, who just got elected in. So it was from Anita Mecklenburg as well as Jim Lehan, the response was, we can't push back on Healy and her administration because that'll affect our other programs. They will retract and dial back on other stuff that we're getting from them currently. So they didn't want to use a backbone. And I'm
That's
like,
right. That's just a sleazy way of getting out of it.
Of course it is. And you know what? In this town, I've lived in this town all my life. We've never got squat from the state
No.
because we vote Republican, and we were told that.
Yeah.
Oh, when you start voting Democrat, let us know. We'll pay for your ambulance, your new ambulance.
right, sure.
Otherwise, forget about it.
Historically, our leadership in this town has been pretty wimpy. They want to get elected,
Yeah.
but they don't want to do anything once they get elected.
Yeah.
Well, I can
Kevin
honestly
Roach
say-
might be a breath of fresh air here, but
But guess we'll, he might see what happened Tuesday night and go, I'm doing my first term and that's it.
what did I step in?
Yeah, I think
intimidation was
Kevin's
amazing.
probably in it for a while. But you know what? You're gonna selectman. If you really try to help people and to really work on problems, you're going to die a death of 1,000 cuts.
Of course you are.
You can't please everybody.
And I must be honest with you. 3, 4, 5 times in my life I've been tempted to run for selectman. Most of the times my wife beat it out of me, usually with a stick. But if you're going to do the job of selectman, you have to give up the rest of your life to some degree, because you're going to get calls from people, things are going to come up, and problems are going to rear their ugly head, and you have got to get involved.
Yep.
And if you're not willing to do it, don't become a selectman.
Or vote.
Yeah.
Don't vote. And that's what it boils down to. If you're not happy with what's going on, why didn't you vote? You got the right to do that. That's what we're supposed to be all about here in this country. But
Yeah.
and I'm guilty of it. Last time I voted, Reagan.
Well, you made a good move there.
My guys always lose.
Well, so on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being thoroughly depressed and 10 being very, very positive that things are going to happen, where are you after sitting through that agony?
That's a tough question. I don't see any positive outlook. I really don't, unless we come up with a real good solution to this. It's going to be one of those things where they need to do it correctly, and people need to be pleased with everything that's going on in order for that to happen. But you can't please everyone. That's the big issue. So, God, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm probably at about a 5. I think I'm more displeased than I am pleased with everything. So I'm here nor there. I try to have an optimistic outlook, because I believe people that are looking to come here, they're looking for something better because they see what's going on in this country. There's a reason they came here, because they think it's the best country in the world. Well, we kind of advertise that all the time, don't we? And so everybody wants to come here to see what that's all about. It's advertising.
Well, I think you're partially right. But I think a lot of those people are living in hellholes.
Right.
And an insane asylum would be a step up for them. So,
Like Venezuela or Haiti or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
those poor
Oh.
people, I can understand that.
You know what?
But
Dwayne, you and I have talked about Haiti.
yeah, that's another thing. That we encourage immigration
Yeah.
to a certain extent,
Yep.
but we're encouraging the cream of the crop to come here.
Right.
So what does that do to the original country? It's a brain drain. It's a talent drain on that country. That country is just going to get worse and worse and worse. We should be saying to these people, no, you don't come here. We'll educate you there or help you there. You stay there. You're the shaker and the mover. You
Right.
stay there and fix your own country.
Right.
This stuff would go away. But we don't. We encourage that kind of a
We
brain drain.
have spent 2 generations or 3 generations doing our level best to ignore all the problems of Mexico
That's right.
and Latin America.
That's right.
And when we should be helping people out, we don't. And look what happens. Dictatorships, banana republics, and to a large degree, I think it's our fault.
Well, let me give you some input here, because
What's that?
I have a unique situation where I actually met a person that just got here from the Middle East. And they spent 70 days traveling to get here from the Middle East. 70 days.
Okay.
Transported from point A to point B to point C, point D, E, F. I don't know how many different locations they went to.
Okay.
Madrid, Spain was one of
Right.
them. Turkey was one of them. They ended up in Nicaragua, Guatemala. Bounced around before they finally got to the point where they had to pay to get themselves to the United States. I'll give you a clue. The cartel that is responsible for all this transportation coming into the country received $20,000 from that individual. If you multiply that times even 5 million people that came into the country, you're looking at $100 billion enterprise.
Plus the
Well,
money
there's
they're
no question
making
about
on drugs.
that money. But how did they, I guess what I was trying to say again is, they left their country and they had resources, obviously.
They
Because
sold
paid-
their house.
Well, they had resources.
Yeah.
So they had the wherewithal to do stuff.
Yeah.
Would not have they been better to put them resources into their country in the first place, rather than bail out, saying goodbye,
You're-
suckers. I'm not sticking around.
You're
Well,
Absolutely
their
right.
relatives live here. And that's what it is. Their relatives live here and go, oh, you got to come here. This is incredible. You know, that's what they're telling them. Oh, yeah, come here. And that's why they're here.
Fox News had a little story on this, and they interviewed some people, and the people were willing to talk, and that amazed me. But they said, "How much did it cost you to get here?" $10,000. Now, if we look at the people in Nicaragua or any of the other spots down there, with a couple of exceptions, Costa Rica is terrible too. You look at how do they accrue that $10,000? They're
right.
living in poverty down there.
Yeah, you're right.
Or it's a debt. It's a loan from the entity that's doing the transporting to get them here. That's what it is. They're loaning the money, and it's a promise that they're going to pay that money through whatever means, transporting drugs, transporting humans, because that's another one we're dealing with too, is human trafficking.
Oh yeah.
So
Yep. And you know what? If you take a look at the problem and examine it closely, the problem is us, right in this country. We have this huge appetite for drugs.
Yeah.
We have this huge appetite for illicit underage sex. We manufacture our own problems. Which brings me to another question I have. I'll get to it later. Never mind.
we could do this for 2 hours.
Yeah, easily. Well, all right. So
That's my report.
I'm thoroughly
You did a good job.
Oh, thank you.
excellent job, and I'm
thank you.
thoroughly depressed about that.
I'm sorry.
We'll be putting you into more undercover
I'm
operations
sorry.
as the time goes
I'm sorry I
on.
don't have any answers for you. I mean, I wish they had answers for us, you know?
We'll meet again in 2 weeks, and you better have the answers for us.
Oh, well, I'll get right on that for you. Huh?
There, I've
right.
laid down the law, Dwayne.
Yep, that's right.
Today is the 6th of June,
Yeah, 1944.
1944, Operation Overlord. Winston Churchill said, "What a plan. This vast operation is undoubtedly the most complicated and difficult that has ever taken place."
It was too. Thousands and thousands of vessels and ships and hundreds of thousands of individuals.
And we pulled it off.
Yep. And the planning was
The organizers did an
Unbelievable.
amazing job. Yep.
And you know what is even more amazing is that Dwight Eisenhower was elected president for 2 terms, 52 and again he was elected in 56. And he was never respected for his intellect. He was a war hero. Yeah. Well, when you do some research and read some of history about how this all evolved, General Marshall was considered to be the smartest military man we had, George Marshall. And Roosevelt made the decision that he was not going to allow Marshall to run the war in Europe. It was very selfish on his part. He said, because he's my brain, I have got to have him by my side. So the second choice was Eisenhower.
Eisenhower was a hands-on, common sense type guy.
He was a man of the little guys liked him.
Yeah, that's right. He could get it done. He didn't sit in the ivory tower and say, well, we're going to do this, but that's it. But he'd say, well, that's impossible. No, I thought of it. We're going to do it. Eisenhower would look at a problem and he'd solve it. He'd say, all right. But he'd bring in the actual doers, the people that had to do the damn job.
Yeah.
And he knew what was going on. He was even ready with this operation for it to fail. He had written out his apology to the country, to the world. I am sorry. It's my fault. We screwed it up.
Right. Yeah.
I'm resigning.
I'm resigning. Yeah. Something you don't see today.
Right.
No.
And by the way, history has indicated to us that being the second choice really was the best choice he could have made.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Marshall, brilliant man,
Yep.
did not have the personality that Eisenhower had. And Eisenhower found a way to work with the French, with the British,
Yep.
and basically, in the long run, he said, well, this is the way it's going to be. And that, we called the shots. But I'm very impressed with with Eisenhower and what he accomplished. But the preparation for D-Day, incredible. 138 battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, 279 escorts, and then all kinds of miscellaneous, total of 7,400 ships or boats.
Thousands.
Just for D-Day.
Yeah.
10,000 aircraft were deployed. And by June 18th, there were 50,000 Allied soldiers on the ground in France going forward. But boy, I'll tell you, that from the 6th to the 18th was amazing.
That was the turning point.
How screwed up we were.
Yep.
They landed people at the
wrong place.
beaches.
They jumped 100 miles away from where they're supposed to.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I have been in combat situations. If somebody asks you, how do you describe it? Confusion, I think, would be the first word. Chaos and confusion.
Right.
No matter how much you think that your group is in control and in line and everything, once that shooting starts and everybody starts covering their own butt,
Try to keep your head level.
everything goes out the window.
Absolutely.
For it to even hold together at 10 or 15% is amazing.
Yeah.
But that's where leadership comes in. They pull them back together on spot. And if you don't have the leadership, you're done.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. At the end of the first day, June 6th, the Allies suffered 10,000 casualties and 2,500 dead.
Yep.
The Germans lost between 4,000 and 9,000 men. We don't know. The Germans don't even know.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But even with all the planning we had, it was chaos.
Oh, absolutely.
But somehow
Everything
we
was chaos.
worked our way through it.
Yep.
And the Germans were caught totally unaware.
There was so much stuff that they screwed up. And, you know, thank God Eisenhower and the other Allied command never fell to the pressure to have Hitler assassinated. Because
Don't you think it was intimidation, though? A lot of it. They saw that out there in the ocean and said, "There's no way in the world we can handle this."
No.
well, that was one of the statements that was made on a thing I read. One of the outposts in Germany, or Normandy, it's getting light out, just barely light. He looks out and he sees ships, and he's calling back what he sees. And on the other end told him, "There aren't that many ships in the world. You must have been too much schnapps."
Oh, right.
Yeah.
They
There
were in
ain't that
denial.
many ships
They
in the
were in
world.
denial.
Hitler refused to believe that we were going to land at Normandy.
Oh, he was good Calais, wasn't
Yeah.
he?
Well, his
everything
ego
was-
always was. the
Oh, yeah.
problem.
Well, that's why the Allies resisted ever assassinating him,
Right.
because he led the military and he
Yes.
fumbled it all the
It was the
time.
best thing
Right.
we had going for
That's
us.
right.
Yeah.
Churchill wanted him assassinated. If you assassinate him, he's got some very competent generals that are going to step into his
Step in
position.
and fix it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. The whole thing worked out accidentally very
Yeah.
well.
It did.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was a marvelous thing. Now, some recent data has come out. We were wringing our hands now about what's going on in the Gaza Strip, about civilians being collateral damage. Okay? As a result of D-Day, we now have some numbers. 19,000 French civilians were killed in
Okay.
our bombing and our moving inward.
Yep.
And we were just a steamroller.
Yeah.
And that
Had to be.
The French, there was an article written about it, were bitter about that for years. We never understood that in this country.
No, because we didn't.
We
We weren't
didn't-
on the receiving
we
end of it
didn't
either.
know.
We didn't know.
Yeah.
But you know, World War II, the collateral damage. If you look at collateral damage, it's in the millions.
Oh.
Just, you know,
Well,
these.
yeah. So now, they estimate 30 million people died as a result of World War II.
Well, the whole world was at war, so I mean that
Yeah.
would make
Oh,
sense.
yeah. People starving to death. Now, and more than 50,000 French citizens died from U.S. and British bombing in World War II. We attempted to hit German targets inside occupied France. Only now, in recent polls, do the French recognize the U.S. as liberators. They, for years, said it was the Russians that liberated them. They hated us so much because we were dropping bombs on them.
And how many years did it take for that to start fading away? A lot of years.
40, 50 years.
And then you had De Gaulle on top of it.
And there's still French that don't like us.
Oh.
And De Gaulle was mad because he wasn't the star. He
Yeah.
got pushed
Oh.
off, and
You know, you say to yourself, it would have been much simpler if somebody decided to put a bullet in him.
De Gaulle, yeah, or
Yeah.
ship him some.
It would have made a lot of problems go away.
Yeah, it would have.
But you know that that was the greatest generation. We had guys when Pearl Harbor was attacked. Immediately left their jobs and went and joined the service.
Oh, you saw the pictures of December 8th. Around the block,
Yeah.
people lined up at recruiting stations around the block.
Exactly. And the veterans, we don't recognize them as much as we should, and we don't thank them as much as we should. They saved our bacon.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Well, we're all veterans, aren't we?
Yeah.
All three of us?
Yeah.
So there. I mean,
Bill's
We did our
Germany,
part.
East Germany, I'm Vietnam.
Yeah.
Where were you?
None. No conflict.
No.
I served, I came in right after Vietnam, 77. So I was fortunate enough to not have to serve in a conflict. So I don't know what it's like.
I was early Vietnam.
Yeah.
We were still advisors when I got there. I was embedded in a Special Forces B team. We were the only Americans in the whole damn province. You want to talk about uneasy?
Yeah.
40 of us, and surrounded by God knows who.
Right.
Yeah, but look at me. I'm standing on the Rhine holding back the Russians
That's right.
single-handedly.
Yeah. You got your M1 or your M14. I guess it was then.
M14.
Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay.
The stories, right? It could be going on for days.
I guess, oh boy. Dwayne,
Yes, sir.
how about a report on the Reed trial?
Okay.
I know you follow that quite closely.
I have been.
You reading up on Reed?
It's like watching paint dry. No, it's worse. It is so slow. A couple of questions came up. I asked yesterday, who the hell's paying for these attorneys? She's got a team of 3, and they go on. They go on for weeks. I mean, thousands of hours of billing here, and they got to be $600-700 an hour easy.
Whew. Yeah.
And who's paying for
Are
that?
those public defenders or?
Hers? God no.
No.
They're-
There's a GoFundMe or something
Yeah, I
of
think
that
she's
nature.
getting a lot of
Yeah,
money.
A lot of support
Yesterday
from signage
was
or whatever.
my esteemed consideration here was, I think, a disaster for the defense. They had some witnesses that were not intimidated. They were to the point. They were professional. They were professional detectives and research people from the state police. And they asked that one guy, the state police investigator, what, have you ever handled a homicide case before? And he says, I'm up to about 500 of them.
Oh, wow.
So when the defense was trying to be cute, and trying to lead him into a, and he just sat there and said, no. You're not sucking me into that.
Right.
And they laid out some very, in my opinion, devastating evidence, physical evidence. But the crap that they get into, that means nothing. And they're trying to lay a base. And it just looks like the defense is clutching at straws. I mean, just taking anything that they can get. Well, they'll take a witness that 2 years ago testified, say before the grand jury, or said, well, there were 3 guys. And today you said 4. And he said, well, that was 3 years ago. But
There's 5 left.
Was your testimony wrong then, or is it wrong today? It's picky-uni stuff that doesn't mean a thing. And what they're doing is trying to throw doubt into stuff.
Now, how about the guy that from ATF?
He was.
I
What was
have
his name? Higgins.
Yeah, I have a question about him.
I do too, and I think I know why.
Oh, okay.
He was very embarrassed.
He is not a good guy.
No, he was trying to snake around there with the defendant.
Oh, sure he was.
And they had some very embarrassing emails that he said, this is embarrassing. He was trying to romance.
Move in.
Move in a little there.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So, but here's the thing about him. He's a federal police officer,
Yeah, well, he's ATF.
ATF.
Yeah, I know. But that's, okay, I don't want to get
He's
into
a federal employee.
And he carries a gun.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And doesn't it go with that job that you're on duty technically 24 hours
Yes,
a
you
day?
are. Always on
and
call.
during waking hours you wear the gun.
You're a government employee.
And now he's in a bar stinking drunk
Yeah, that's right.
every night
That's what I
of the
said. It was a
week.
very embarrassing
And
situation for him.
drinking and driving.
Yeah.
And What were his bosses saying to themselves?
I think his career is not going to be stellar from here on out.
I think his career is going to be the retirement
Yeah,
papers.
I think so, too.
If he's got anything left upstairs,
Yeah.
he's got the retirement papers. He's got them filled out.
You better have them filled out.
I mean, look at our government. What's happening to Austin, for example, for going AWOL? Nothing.
Nothing.
No, I mean, so as a federal employee, really, what are your what's going to happen to you? Nothing.
What?
But the case itself is, I think yesterday was a turning point. I don't know what's happened. Today,
When's closing argument?
What's that?
When's closing
oh, God,
argument?
I have no idea.
Nobody knows.
We don't know how many-
Keep
how
going.
many
They don't have a
Witnesses
set
are-
time frame or anything for
Oh,
this.
they get
Well, week 7 now.
they get 40 something more witnesses or something to
Okay.
call.
I haven't been following it at all.
It had to be a tough
I'm sorry
time
you're
for
having
the-
to do that.
It had to be a tough time for the free care and read people yesterday.
I had a brain fart the other day. I remember asking one of my
Hey, we're
girlfriends.
old. We can do that.
I remember asking one of my girlfriends, "How do you spell Mississippi?" And she said, "The state of the river."
Yeah. See that, It's actually one
well,
of my,
I guess I have something here for 2 minutes. Mexico has 4 times the murder rate than we have.
Oh, I'm surprised
It's
it's
the
only
cartel.
4.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it's only 4.
It's the gangs killing each
That's
other.
right.
Yeah.
And they have about 8,000 truck hijacking incidents
Sure.
every year. That doesn't sound
Where do they
good.
get their goods to keep them fed?
Yeah. I must apologize. I'm in no.
Well, Mexico's even pre-cartel. If you go back, when we were young, Mexico was always the wild, wild west.
Oh, yeah.
God
All those
almighty.
banditos, sure.
Oh, you went to Tijuana. You took your life in your hands.
Right. Yep.
Well, you weren't Navy, were you?
Our Air Force, sorry.
Okay, but
Yeah.
the Navy guys from San Diego go down to Tijuana. And you may come back missing an arm or shot or stabbed or it was just the idea that you
Yeah.
go there, you're going to get in trouble.
Sure.
That's something I never understood. I never tried deliberately to do anything dangerous.
I didn't either. I don't understand.
I don't understand
We
this.
must have been wussies.
Yeah, maybe that was it.
I jumped out of a perfectly good airplane. I was
Well,
doing
there you
stupid
go.
stuff.
That was that.
I got one question left, and we're going to take a break.
Okay.
Christians care deeply about this country and its direction. Will they turn out in huge numbers? Yes or no?
Christians?
Yes.
No.
No?
The motivation has to be, is it bad enough? I hear this on a podcast that I watch. Is it bad enough yet? I think we are at that stage where it's bad enough yet. The tide is starting to turn into, more people are turning to religion for answers to try and resolve whatever's going on in their life. So I think it might be a turning point for that kind of
Yeah,
thing. where the
I'd say
faith-
no. Just the opposite.
All right.
I see the churches' attendance are down and down and
No
down.
question.
They're going way down now. Continue to go down.
Well, but a lot of people are turning to faith online
Yeah, well, I don't
because of
know.
the
yeah.
pandemic.
Yeah.
But that's also something that you hear about all the time.
Right.
It's like the squeaky wheel getting the.
In the past, when we've had tough economic times, church attendance goes up.
Absolutely.
I'm surprised it's not going up more than it is.
Right.
to
Well,
be
we haven't
honest
got
with
tough economic times right now. People are not suffering. There's not a lot of people unemployed. If you want a job, you can have a job.
Yeah. All right. We're going to start. We're going to take a break, and we're going to start with your favorite category after we come back.
Would you rather?
Yep.
All right. Get ready. Andy said he's ready.
Andrew's ready? Yeah.